Hey blues fans, so glad you made it. Welcome. It's time for another episode of This Week in the Blues. It's our weekly take on blues history. I'm your host, Jimbo Big Train Madsen with Big Train and the Locomotives, blues band in Oklahoma. So, let's take a look and see what happened this week in blues history. On September 22nd in 1965, Junior Wells started recording the album Hoodoo Man Blues. It's regarded by many blues fans as the finest LP ever recorded as an album session, rather than a collection of singles from different sessions. The session marked one of the first times a working Chicago blues band had ever been brought into the studio to do a whole album, and Junior Wells transferred his Southside Blues Club act into the studio with ease, superbly supported with Buddy Guy, bassist Jack Myers, and drummer Bill Warren. Chicago blues guitarist Mighty Joe Young was born September 23, 1927, in Shreveport, Louisiana. He was an amateur boxer in the 1940s, but he later recalled that, it was nothing to write home about, and I decided that music was the best thing to do. And we're glad he came to that decision. There was a time during the late 70s and early 80s when Mighty Joe Young was one of the leading blues guitarists on Chicago's budding North Side blues circuit. Beginning in the late 1950s, he performed and recorded with a who's who of Chicago blues artists, including Otis Rush, Magic Sam, Jimmy Rogers, Billy Boy Arnold, Willie Dixon, Tyrone Davis, and Jimmy Dawkins. The great Ray Charles was born September 23rd in 1930. Among friends and fellow musicians, he preferred being called Brother Ray and was often referred to as the Genius. Charles was blinded during childhood, possibly due to glaucoma. Ray Charles pioneered the soul music genre during the 1950s by combining blues, jazz, rhythm and blues, and gospel styles into the music he recorded for the Atlantic label. He contributed to the integration of country music, rhythm blues, and pop music during the 1960s with this crossover success. While he was at ABC Records, Charles became one of the first black musicians to be granted artistic control by a mainstream record company. Chicago blues guitarist Fenton Robinson was born on September 23, 1935. He was active in the Chicago blues scenes in the 1960s through the 1980s. A product of the Mississippi Delta, Robinson was born near Greenwood, Mississippi. Now, he left home at the age of 18 and moved to Memphis, Tennessee, where he recorded his first single, Tennessee Woman, in 1957. In 1959, he made his first recording of As the Years Go Passin' By, later recorded by several blues artists. In 1967, he recorded his signature song, Somebody Loaned Me a Dime. In 2023, he was inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame. Blues legend Blind Lemon Jefferson was born on September 24, 1893. He was one of the most popular blues singers in the 1920s and has been called the father of the Texas blues. Blind Lemon Jefferson was to Texas blues what Charlie Patton was to Mississippi blues. His performances had a direct influence upon such legendary Texas musicians as Lightnin' Hopkins, T-Bone Walker, and Leadbelly, while his recordings helped bring his influence to an even larger audience. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame selected Jefferson's Matchbox Blues as one of the 500 songs that helped shape rock and roll. Jefferson was in the inaugural class inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame in 1980. Blues singer and guitarist Robert Chick Willis was born September 24, 1934, and is the cousin of blues artist Chuck Willis. Okay, let's get this straight. We're talking about Chick Willis, not Chuck Willis. Let's try to keep them straight. I know it's the difference of one vowel, but two different people. So, Chick Willis made his vinyl debut in 1956 with the single You're Mine, after winning a talent contest at Atlanta's Magnolia Ballroom. He's primarily remembered for his ribald dozens bass track, Stoop Down Baby. He cut the original version in 1972, selling a ton of 45s for the jukebox market only because of the tune's lyrics were too raunchy for airplay. He released a steady stream of albums in the 1980s and 1990s and continued to record into the 2000s. Tar Heel Slim was born September 24th, 1923. His real name is Alan Bunn, and he recorded in virtually every post-war musical genre imaginable. However, spirituals were Bunn's first love. While still in North Carolina during the 1940s, the guitarist worked with the Gospel Four and then with the Selah Jubilee Singers. Bunn broke away in 1949 to form the Jubilators. During a single day in New York in 1950, they recorded for 4 different labels under 4 different names. One of those labels was Apollo, who convinced them to go secular, basically blues and no gospel. That's essentially how the Larks, one of the seminal early R&B vocal groups, came to be. Blues singer and guitarist Rosal Lee Hemphill was born September 25th in 1910 in Como, Mississippi, in the heart of the Delta. She shortened her last name to just Hill and played music that was in the tradition of North Mississippi. Her song, Bullyin' Well, which was recorded by Alan Lomax, has been included on a number of releases over the years. The daughter of country blues musician Sid Hemphill, Rosal Lee learned guitar from her father, and by the time she was 10, was playing dances with him. Several of her songs were recorded by Alan Lomax in 1959, including Rolled and Tumbled. Hill and her husband were sharecroppers and lived in perpetual poverty. She is the aunt of blues singer Jessie Mae Hemphill. Mississippi juke joint legend Roosevelt Bo Barnes was born September 25th in 1936 in Longwood, Mississippi. He learned to play harmonica at age 8, playing juke joints at age 16, and was a regular performer in the clubs on Greenville's famed Nelson Street by the age of 17. His nickname came from a brother who said that Roosevelt was worse than a booby trap. Barnes opened a nightclub, the Playboy Club, in 1985 and played there with a backing group called the Playboys. Well, blues fans, well, that was a pretty full episode. We just covered some of the highlights here. If you want to know more about these artists or the many other things that happened this week in the blues, be sure to follow our social media pages or go out and visit our website at bigtrainblues.com. Now we'll have a brand new episode next week, so we'll see you then.